as an entrepreneur, I think it's the idealism of entrepreneurship. Like you said, like people think it's going to be, I'm going to do what I love and it's just going to be wonderful and all roses and butterflies every single day. Um, and it is extremely fulfilling to be able to do something that you love and to build and create something that is your own. But there also is a lot of work and there's a lot of sacrifice that is involved. And I don't think every person is built to be an entrepreneur. You have to have that you have to have a level of risk that you're willing to take. You have to be one of those people that is not afraid of stepping out and trying things, even if you fail.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Expert. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Diana Chaloux LaCerte. And I know I slaughtered it, but that's as close as I'm going to get. But with Diana, we're going to talk about a few great topics, including the power of mentors, power that mentors have on people to get things done right the first time. Also, not having to do things alone. How to approach a business with humility and coachability, as well as being passionate about what you do as an entrepreneur and loving it as you go through being an entrepreneur. So it should be some great topics of conversation. And with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Diana.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Hey, excited to have you here. So, well, I just gave a quick intro to kind of some of the topics at hand. Now, before we dive in to the topics at hand, a couple things. One is a reminder to the audience that Diana was on our sister podcast, The Inventive Journey. So if you want to kind of hear her full journey, make sure to check out her episode there. But for those that haven't had a chance to catch that episode or just looking for a quick introduction, take a minute or two and just introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, sure. My name's Diana. It's Chaloux LaCerte, so you were pretty close. And I own a company called Hitch Fit. My husband and I have owned that business for the past 15 years. We provide online personal training globally. We've helped clients in 82 countries shed over 700,000 pounds of fat. And we have brick and mortar gyms here in Kansas City. So they are transformation training gyms. So we really just help people get in the best shape of their lives. And we recently, just within the last 2 years, started a new business called Soul Fit Retreats. So now we're doing faith and fitness based retreats all around the world and kind of digging in with people even deeper. And just everything we do is pretty much transformation. So that's what I'm about.
That's awesome. Sounds like a great place to be and a good journey to be on. So maybe in no particular order, but one of the things that we chatted a bit about beforehand, I always think is a beneficial topic to hit on for a lot of entrepreneurs out there is the power of having a mentor. Now, I think that that as a I'll say stereotypical entrepreneur, having a mentor kind of cuts both ways in the sense that one, I think at a fundamental level, hey, I don't know everything, and getting ahead of the game by or pulling on other people's expertise on areas I'm not expert on can help the business. And yet, on the other hand, I think also as an entrepreneur, you like to do it yourself, go your own way. You don't like to acknowledge any shortcomings or anything of that nature. And so while you might fundamentally understand, a lot of times people are reticent to necessarily go down the route of having a mentor, at least at the beginning. So kind of walk us through, kind of what is the power of mentorship? Why should people be thinking about it? And how do you kind of get yourself in the position to have the right mentors in place?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And we were very lucky early on. I think when HitchFit was three when I was our third year in business, and we got into a mentoring program here in Kansas City called the Hellsberg Entrepreneurial Mentoring Program. And it was hugely beneficial for us specifically because we took something that was our passion and turned it into a business. And so there was so much that we had to learn from the business perspective. And what we found is like entrepreneurs, we all have the same problems. It just looks a little bit different depending on what your business is. And so just to have people that had gone before us and could just kind of give us guidance and see what we were doing and be like, maybe you're going to go that path, but here's maybe a way to think about it differently. And I think the other thing is like having a mentor is someone that can just, they're not in your business like you are. Like when you're in it, you can kind of just get so focused, and it may be hard to step back and see the bigger picture. So it was wonderful to have someone that just could step back and see everything we were doing from a bigger picture and say, hey, here's some things that you might think about that you may not see because you're so honed in and focused on what you're doing on the day to day. So it was tremendously beneficial for us. And then over the years, we've just been very blessed just to have so many very successful entrepreneurs come alongside us and just give us guidance and warn us about things that could potentially happen and kind of open our eyes to like, hey, have you thought about this or that? So any entrepreneur, business owner, if you can, a lot of cities have mentoring programs that you can apply for and sign up for. Maybe it's just something more informal with someone that you know that you can just ask for mentoring. But I think it's so beneficial because we're never going to stop learning. So have someone that's walked that path before you to help you and guide you.
Now, let me kind of maybe follow up with one question on that, which is, I think as an entrepreneur, if you're just doing a startup or small business or just getting going, you could have, I'll make up the number, 100 different mentors. And I don't know, 100, but you could have a lot, everything from, let's say you don't like finance. Let's say you don't really know how to hire or fire. You don't know how to do HR. Maybe you don't know how to do operations, and you're good at sales, but you don't know how to set up IT or infrastructure. In other words, you could have a very long list of mentors, and yet to find that number of mentors and also to listen to them and become unwieldy. I mean, that could be almost your full-time job of just finding and listening to mentors. And so any thoughts as far as kind of how you identify maybe which areas or which mentors you should look at bringing on first, or who would be most impactful to your business? And, maybe as you mature as a business and you bring on team members, or as evolve along, you'll figure that out. But how do you kind of even go about kind of figuring out who is the right mentors to bring on at the right time?
I think it's just you got to be honest about what you're bad at. And the group we were part of, like their motto was put your worst foot forward. And so it was really the things that we were struggling with the most, that was where we needed mentorship. So they got us a mentor. They paired us with a mentor that was really strong in the area that we were the worst at. Like creativity, marketing, all of that stuff. We were really strong in those areas, but structure and all of those things, because we were coming at things from a passion standpoint instead of, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm going to start a business. We were like, this is something we're super passionate about. Let's turn this into a little empire. So I think that's the key, is just what are you the worst at? And like you said, that probably is going to evolve over the years. Like you may improve there and then find another area of like, maybe it's scalability. Now I need to figure this piece out, or maybe it's taking my business online if you've just only had a brick and mortar, whatever it might be. Just whatever the thing is that's your biggest struggle or that you're the worst at, I think is where to find the mentors for first.
No, I think that definitely that makes sense. Now, kind of walk through, maybe even just touching on a bit of your experience when you were bringing on mentors. Kind of what were the areas? I mean, sometimes it almost seems like, and by all means, correct me where I'm wrong, but to a degree, even bringing on a mentor, a lot of times it can be lonely to be an entrepreneur. Now, sometimes you'll have a co-founder, maybe you'll have a spouse that you're doing it with or something, but a lot of times you're the person, you're the man or woman, the guy or the girl that is doing this, and is a lot of times going in alone. And it starts to get a bit lonely in the sense that when you're working for someone else, you have a coworker, you have a boss, you have someone that you can go and complain to, act as a sounding board, or give you some or thoughts or feedback. And yet as a entrepreneur, if you're starting out on your own, which a lot of times you do because you don't really have the funds to pay anybody else, you don't really have that ability to have a lot of those support systems in place naturally that you do when you're working for someone else. And so, as part of or having a mentor in place, if nothing else, in a good way, but if nothing else, is to have that sounding board and that support system that maybe you otherwise would lack.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and you're right. It can be, for me and my husband, luckily we've always had each other. And so that's been incredible because we always have been able to bounce ideas and go through challenges together, but that's not every entrepreneur, probably the majority of entrepreneurs don't have that. So even for us, having that person in place that we could just talk those things through, and even if it was just talking it out, with another person that could give good feedback and that would listen and then kind of had your best interests at heart and could just give you some good feedback, man, that is just invaluable when you're trying to figure out this pathway because it's different for everyone. It's just I don't know any entrepreneurial, that's why you share these stories, it's because everybody's story is a little bit different. So yeah, so valuable to have someone, some kind of support system.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. Now, maybe to follow up on that just a little bit, I'll take the flip side, which is, sometimes, watching other entrepreneurs that are out there, you'll get into the flip side of it, which is you too heavily rely on the mentor. So in other words, there's a place that a mentor can absolutely add value, give you thoughts, feedback, sounding board, support system, add expertise that you otherwise might not have. And on the other hand, sometimes feel too heavily rely on it, meaning, hey, if the mentor says it, I'm going to jump to and do it. I'll do exactly what they say. They're the expert. They've been through this. They know what they're doing. And some of that may be true. On the other hand, one is even if they know what they're doing, sometimes they'll push, the reason you got into entrepreneurship is oftentimes you want to captain your own ship, make your own decisions, and not have to be answerable or accountable to someone else as far as managing the business. Or they'll put you in a direction that makes sense to them, but maybe doesn't make sense to your core for your business. And so how do you weigh kind of having that mentorship, having that support system, having that expertise, but also making sure that you don't get pushed in a direction that doesn't make sense for your business or for you?
I think that just comes down to knowing yourself, and one thing that I've done, that Micah and I have done, is we've gotten a lot of advice and a lot of great advice, but we kind of always take things in and then we filter things through pieces of that are going to work for us, because a lot of times there may be one piece that we're like, yeah, that hits, that lands with us, but this piece doesn't. Maybe it's even, where do I see myself if I implemented that? Where does that take me in 3 to 5 years? And maybe that's not where I want to be. So we've actually been very good at being able to pick and choose and take pieces that fit for us. And and it's okay if all of the pieces don't fit. Like, you can take a lot of insight and wisdom and guidance from people, and it doesn't mean you have to take everything and implement it, but you can choose the pieces that land for you, that feel good for you, that resonate with where you want to be in the future. Implement those, but don't worry about doing it all. And I think sometimes people feel like, yeah, oh my goodness, I have to do all this and get stressed. We've always just kind of gone to the beat of our own drum, and it's like, oh, everybody's doing it this way. And I'm like, well, I don't necessarily need to do what everybody's doing, but maybe I could take a piece of that and implement that into what we're doing and see where that goes. So I think it's like you just have to, it's your business, it's your baby, and so you want to make wise choices, but also just always just just wait and make sure that they're choices that feel good and lead you where you want to go.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a great piece of advice, and kind of to go alongside it, not that you hit on it, but I think that at least for me, it makes sense that sometimes it also makes sense to fire a mentor. Now, doesn't mean that you have to be mean or rude or aggressive, and you should absolutely be appreciative, because a lot of times mentors are doing it out of the kindness of their heart, aren't charging you or otherwise doing it just to help out someone that they want to see succeed. But I think on the other hand, you can also be realistic that either sometimes they're not a good fit or they're a good fit for a period of time, and then as you move on, they may no longer be a good fit. And I had a client of ours that they went on, they were an early stage investor, they did a great job of helping the business early on, and the business got to the point that the mentors basically said, hey, I do well at the early stage, starting and building and figuring things out. You've reached a stage where I don't add a lot of value. And so I'm going to take myself out of the picture or step back, not because I don't want you to succeed or I don't believe in your cause, but because I'm no longer the fit that I think that you need. And I want to make sure that you do succeed. So I think that there needs to be that balance of sometimes at any point for any number of reasons, mentors may or may not be a good fit at a given point for where you're at. Now, shifting gears just a little bit, one of the things that you also touched on, which I think at a high level makes sense, and yet a lot of times can also, I think, kind of pull you into the weeds, is the idea of being passionate about what you do. And the reason I say it can kind of be misguiding is, you always hear, I think the old, or however it goes exactly, but or love what you do and you'll never work a day in your life, which one I think is just a genuine. So the sense, no matter how much you love what you do, there are still going to be days that you are going to be not enjoying working in your business every single day of all of your life. You're still going to have bad days or bad months, or you're going to have times where you're doing everything right and everything still seems like it's going wrong, or vice versa. So I think, one thing is you have to be realistic enough to understand that you're not going to have that perfect every day as a marvelous day in the business. But two is, just because you're passionate about it doesn't always correspond into it being a successful business. So in other words, I can be very passionate about, and one of the things that I'm still trying to figure out a business around is I like fruit trees. I just think they're fun to build or to grow and to have a variety of trees and have a small orchard. I still haven't found a business case around it now. I could go sell fruit, but that's not going to be a legitimate business. That'll be just kind of a fun hobby where I may make a few $100s a year selling fruit at wherever, but it's not a real thing. And yet I'm passionate about it. And so I think that, when you're looking at it, there's a balance between, hey, you have to be passionate about it, but you also have to find the business case for how you can make that in. If you can make it into a business, how you make it into a business. So thoughts on how you can find what you're passionate about, love what you do, but also find that realistic balance that, making it into an actual business.
Yeah, it's a great point. I think for us, because it was something we were so passionate about, but we recognized that there was so much learning and growing that we were going to have to do if we wanted it to be a business, and not just be a business, but a sustainable business where, here we are 15 years later, still doing what we do. So for us, I think it's being, if it's something you're passionate about, it's like, be coachable, if we're going to talk about coachability a little bit, because you're not going to be able to make it just on passion. There are going to be so many things that you're going to have to learn along the way. But the flip side of that is, if you're doing something that you're not passionate about, when those hard times come, when those days that is like, yeah, like you said, there's days that are really hard. There's challenges that come up that you don't foresee. And it's not just days, there may be seasons that are just really, really hard. And if it's not something that you have a passion for, it's gonna be really hard to keep pushing through if you don't love what you're doing and you love the result of what you're doing, whether it's the result in your life or the results in other people's lives. So I think passion is a really important piece of the puzzle, but an entrepreneur as a whole, like, there's a lot of pieces to that puzzle, and it's not an easy journey, and it takes a lot of hard work. But when you love what you do, it makes that work worth it, and it makes it so that you're constantly, like, we still are constantly learning and growing and finding out more. And it's always like, man, imagine if we'd known these things 15 years ago. But you have to go through the process and the journey to actually get there. So I think it's like, I think you're right. There's kind of two ways to look at it, but I do think it's a really important piece of the mix.
So now how did, maybe walk through even in your scenario, how did you figure out kind of one, what was your passion, but two, how did you then take that and position it as a actual business that you could build something around? Kind of walk us through a little bit as to how you guys kind of stepwise figured that out and got that set up.
Well, in the fitness industry, I actually, when I graduated from college, I started a job at an office and I was absolutely miserable. I was 21, 22 years old and waking up and going to this 9 to 5. And I was like, I don't think I can do this. This is like, I dreaded every single day. And it was like, you're living for the weekend. And it wasn't that it was bad people. It was very nice people. And it just wasn't for me. And I was like, I don't think I can do this for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years of my life. So I started asking myself, okay, if I could wake up and go someplace and love what I was doing and be excited to go there, where would I be going? And I enjoyed going to the gym. I loved going to the gym. I went to the gym every single day after I got out of work. So I was just at the gym one morning and I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is it. Like this is where I would want to be." And so I started trying to find out that day how I could become a personal trainer. So that was kind of the first step for me was becoming a trainer. Um, and then I was working in that industry and I actually had to go through my own transformation journey. I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And I had to learn nutrition and I had to learn all these things because I wanted to be successful within. I was a fitness competitor. So I ended up doing fitness shows and being in the fitness magazines and I won 2 world champion titles. So to do that, I had to take myself through this incredible transformation of my mind and my body, and that completely changed me. That transformation process I went through on my own, I was like, I want other people to experience this, to take charge of their health in this way so that they get to live their best, healthiest lives. So that just fueled the passion even more for the transformation piece. And then when Micah and I met, he'd had his own transformation journey. He was a skinny guy that had to build muscle. So we had these opposite journeys, but we both knew what it took to get there and we wanted to help other people do it, and we still do that today. So that was the passion. It was like we just really wanted to help other people experience what we had experienced ourselves. And and then when you get to help someone on that journey and see how they change, like that is addicting. Like to know that you had a part of someone just having this incredible experience that changed their lives in a positive way, it's addicting, and so that's why we're still passionate about it 15 years later.
No, and you hit on or touch or start to touch on one of the other questions I had, which is, there's a lot of times you start out, as a stereotypical entrepreneur, a lot of them, you'll start out very passionate about something or excited about the idea or getting it going. And yet, as you get into the actual business, so, there's a transition. This is a side hustle. I'll spend some nights and evenings and weekends kind of toying around with this. I'll, have my first customer and get that high, in that excitement. And then as you mature the business, you tend to start to taper off or lose that because you get more into the monotony of, hey, now I have to do, HR, hiring and firing, managing people, doing marketing and sales, running the business, doing taxes, doing finances, and all those other things. And the things that were fun and exciting about the original business oftentimes are no longer exciting because you're no longer doing those, or that's not where you're spending the majority of your time. And so, you mentioned you've been in it now for almost 15 years or around 15 years. How do you kind of keep that excitement or that passion for the business going as it's now matured as a business and as it's, beyond that kind of initial startup phase?
Yeah, that's a great question too. So we've really evolved in just the transformation space, and that's actually where the retreats come into play. Because initially for us, like I thought when I went through my transformation, everyone was going to be like I was because I was so focused and disciplined and like this feels amazing. I love having this discipline in my life. I love how I look. I love how I feel. But the more people, we've worked with over 20,000 people over the years, and so it was like, okay, how come there's some people that can make this change and it sticks? And then there's so many people that they make this change for a period of time and then they go back to what they were doing before. So the more that we worked with people, it was like, okay, there's deeper levels here that we actually need to be able to figure out how to dig into so that we can really help people change. And so we've like just done that piece of learning more about trauma, learning more about how to help people work through their traumas, identify their traumas, and then creating safe spaces, which is what we do at the retreats where people can come in, they can feel seen, they can feel part of community. So we've evolved into just creating more things that are deeper so that we can help people maybe that are struggling. They're not in a place where they're just going to make change right away. There's stuff that they have to work on first so that they're going to be able to make that transformation. It's so fascinating to me. Like people are fascinating. So it
Hmm.
never gets old, and just there's so much more. There's all of these layers. The trauma piece is newer for us too. Just I'm not finished with my certification yet, but I'm working on a trauma and resilience coaching program. So that's just adds another layer for when I talk to people and when I can hear their stories and how to ask them deeper questions so we can dig out roots of things. So for us, that's how it's evolved is knowing there's deeper layers and then continuing to be creative with what we're doing and the things we're creating so that we can keep helping people. So it keeps it fresh and exciting and fulfilling for us.
No, that makes sense. You know, and probably where what I would add as well is I think, at least for me, what I found is sometimes I'll set aside the things that I still find fun or exciting that are parts of the business. And so a lot of times, you know, as you grow and as you become a more mature business, you know, you naturally tend to you bring on different people to manage different areas. And you can bring on, as an example, I still enjoy the, I'd say, marketing content, some of the aspects of the business of generating new clients outside of the, you know, for the law firm outside of the legal aspect. And so there are plenty of other talented people that I'm sure I could bring on, manage that and do that and do an awesome job. But it's just an area of the business that I enjoy, that I find, you know, fun or exciting. And so even though I could bring someone on to manage that, I tend to keep that for at least aspects of it for myself that I, you know, that I can continue to enjoy as part of the business. And so I think that, you know, one of those balances is as the business evolves and continues to or to change over the years, that you look and say, what are the areas that I find that I'm still passionate about, that I love to do, and at least keep some of those aspects to or for yourself, or, you know, or keep your pulse on or your finger in, so that you can continue to enjoy it as the business grows and changes. We are, you know, it seems like time has already gone by and we've barely scratched the surface of things. So we'll have you maybe back onto one of the other podcasts in the series, one of the sister podcasts. But at least for today, as we kind of wrap up this podcast or this episode, love to jump to the question I like to ask at the end of each episode, which is, within your industry, what is the biggest myth and why is it wrong?
Well, I think we kind of touched a little bit about this on our conversation, and I think as an entrepreneur, I think it's the idealism of entrepreneurship. Like you said, like people think it's going to be, I'm going to do what I love, and it's just going to be wonderful and all roses and butterflies every single day, um, and it is extremely fulfilling to be able to do something that you love and to build and create something that is your own, but there also is a lot of work and there's a lot of sacrifice that is involved. And I don't think every person is built to be an entrepreneur. You have to have that you have to have a level of risk that you're willing to take. You have to be one of those people that is not afraid of stepping out and trying things even if you fail. And so that would just be the thing that I think a lot of entrepreneurs fail is because they don't see that it's gonna be so much hard work to really build and grow something, so I think, but then again, you live and you learn and you gotta try stuff, so but just know it's gonna be hard work.
No, and I think obviously on the flip side, I think it's even good for sometimes you get into it and you find out, hey, I don't like being an entrepreneur. I'm not cut out for this, or this is not something and I enjoy. And yet a lot of times you'll tell yourselves for, you know, a long period of time, hey, I'd love to be an entrepreneur. I want to do this. So sometimes going through that exercise of finding out, hey, I'm really not cut out for this, or this is not something I enjoy, is just as rewarding or it's just as good a feedback as getting into that and finding out you love being an entrepreneur. That's something to do. So I think that having that perspective both ways as you enter into it definitely is beneficial and a great myth to dispel. Well, as
Mhm.
we do wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
The best place is at hitchfit.com. That's our main website, and you'll find my email is on there, our social media is on there, links to our retreat business is on there, but that's kind of our main hub for our online personal training and that side of the business.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, support a great business, or make a new connection. If nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, thank you again, Diana, for coming on the podcast. It's been a fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you other listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast or on our newly launched Inventive Fireside webinar series, just go to inventiveunicorn.com. Apply to be on either of the platforms. Also, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup, your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com. Grab some time with us to chat, and we are always here to help. Well, thank you again, Diana, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you so much.